Hello there. My name is Quentin Russell. I'm the engagement specialist here at Doc365. And today we're going to be presenting a webinar on how to use Teams for contract management. So with that said, let's talk about what we're going to be talking about today. So before we get started, we're going to talk about Doc365, who we are, what we do, kind of lay the foundation of our credibility, let you know that we know what we're talking about. And then from there, we'll go into the basics of contract management so that we all kind of have the same operational definition. That way there's no big issues there and we're all on the same page when it comes to talking about some of the terms we're going to be talking about later on in the webinar. After that, we'll be taking a look at some of the tools in Microsoft Teams that help with contract management. So basically, again, laying some groundwork, letting you know kind of some of the functionality you're working with. And then from there, we'll talk about how you can set up your Microsoft Teams to effectively use for effective contract management, not to effectively use contract management. But basically, I'll be walking you through a quick little Teams site that I built out that can give you a rudimentary contract management process. And then I'll also show you a more developed, built out one that we offer here at Doc365 to show you what's possible and what's on the upper end of that. And then from there, if anyone has any questions throughout the webinar, I'll be answering those at the end of the session. The way that'll work is if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them out in the chat. At the end, I will go through and check those out and answer anything that I can. If there's anything I can't answer, I will do the research and send that out to everyone at the end of today. So with that said, let's talk about who we are. So we're Doc365. We're a company located in Jacksonville, Florida. We have over 18 years of experience. I need to update that at some point, but we have over 18 years of experience working with SharePoint to deliver exceptional productivity solutions. We work with a wide range of companies in a variety of industries to implement a diverse array of SharePoint productivity tools. These include intranet portals, contract management systems, CRM solutions, project management systems, and more. We are a Microsoft Gold certified partner, and we have plenty of experience working with companies to build out productivity tools that can help them break down the knowledge silos in their organization to get that information spread amongst people and break down any collaboration barriers that your company might be running into. So with that said, and if you have any questions about any of the systems that we have, any of the tools that we offer, we'd love to hear from you. So just reach out to us on our website, go to mydoc365.com. Up in the top right screen, you'll see a button for a free demo. Fill out the form, select the product that you'd like to see, and we'd love to show you a free 30 to 45-minute demo of our solution. That way you can kind of see what's going on, and we can maybe explore how we can help you reshape the way you work and work simply. With that said, let's jump into what we're talking about today. So in this, we're going to be talking about the basics of contract management. So these are the different stages that a contract is going to move through throughout its life cycle. These can predominantly be kind of not broken down, but it essentially starts with 5 stages of contract management. The first stage is contract creation. The second one is contract collaboration. The third is signing. The fourth is tracking. And then finally, at the end of the contract's life cycle is renewal, where you will either decide to end the contract or renew it to start everything over again. So with that said, contract creation. So what is involved in the creation of a contract? Well, it's pretty simple and it's broken down into 2 steps. The first is the initial request for a contract, and then the second is actually authoring the contract. So with the initial request, it's essentially when someone identifies a need for a contract and puts together the relevant information and documents. For a lot of organizations, this generally includes, so if you're working with vendors, it's identifying the need for a vendor, so something like office furniture or for raw material. Saying this is what we need, this is how much we need, and then sourcing out the different vendors that you would like to try. And then from there, gathering the information that you would need for the contract. And it pretty much works the same way for a customer, not the exact same way, but a customer comes to you and says, hey, we would like to buy your product. You collect your information, their needs, what they would need out of that contract, the amount that they're buying, et cetera, and then you would compile all of that information together, and then you would start authoring the contract. So this is essentially taking all of the information that you've gathered during the request and putting that together into an actual contract. So essentially getting all of the terms ironed out and set up within there. Well, not the terms ironed out, but essentially getting the initial terms in there and getting it formatted and documented so that you can then begin collaborating on the contract. Ooh. Ooh. I apologize for that, fat fingers. So stage 2 is collaboration. So basically, once the contract is drafted, the relevant parties spend time on the contract and negotiate terms. This is generally the lengthiest part of the process, taking anywhere from a couple days to 6 months to a year, depending on the actual terms of the contract and the scale of it. Generally, customer contracts tend to go faster than vendor contracts, although it really depends on the customer. So if you're B2B, that's going to take a bit longer. B2C is generally going to be faster because it's less negotiating the actual terms of the agreement and more just someone buying something off of you. Generally, this involves a lot of emailing back and forth, going into a Word document, suggesting changes, making edits, sending versions back and forth, and you can have versions of contracts pile up. I mean, you can have some situations where you have 6 or 7 versions of a contract floating around and no one really knows which one is the actual version people are working on. So yeah, this can definitely be the most confusing and lengthy part of the process. The next stage is signing. And again, there are 2 stages to this. The first one is actually approving the contract, and then the second one is actually executing it. So approving the contract basically involves getting approval from higher ups and having them sign off on the contents of the contract. So not necessarily, so this can kind of overlap with negotiation and everything, but it kind of has a situation where it's essentially getting it in front of the right people, getting them to sign off on it, and then moving it through the approval workflows. So essentially getting a manager to sign off on it, getting the CIO, CEO, whoever else needs to sign off on it. And then from there, you would go to execution. So this is essentially getting everything signed, getting it sent out, and then beginning to actually implement the terms of the contract. This can also be a lengthy stage, especially because, actually getting the people to sign off on it, getting it in front of them, making sure that they don't lose it can be a difficult process. But moving on from that, we get to stage 4, which is tracking. And there are 3 steps involved in this stage of contract management. This is obligation management, revisions and amendments, and auditing and reporting. So with obligation management, this involves listing out all of the deliverables in a contract and ensuring that they are met on time. So if you have certain payments that are due by certain dates, certain deliverables, so like for instance, a certain amount of work done, a certain document completed and sent over, a certain amount of pallets sent over, ensuring that both sides are actually meeting that and being compliant. Because failing to meet your obligations can risk you becoming non-compliant, voiding the contract, and you risk incurring fines, potential lawsuits, and you really want to avoid that. The next part of it is revisions and amendments, basically examining the contract as it's moving throughout as it's being executed, and then finding any gaps or overlooked items, and then potentially resolving those issues, creating new documentation, adding an amendment, adding a clause that just says, hey, we didn't anticipate this, bring it back over, get this set up, we're good to go. And then from there, you have auditing and reporting. So this is basically just tracking the performance of the contract and ensuring that both parties are compliant with it. So keeping track of everything, making sure that all of your deliverables are met, payments are due on time, and all of the terms of the contract are being met. And from there, we go to renewal. And this is the stage where both parties decide if they actually want to renew the contract or cancel it. Basically, this involves like a 30, 60, or 90-day renewal period where basically each party considers the performance of the contract to see if it's actually beneficial to both parties. So if one party decides that they are no longer involved in the contract, they would have to follow the terms of the contract to basically cancel it. So whether that's giving a certain amount of days notice, whether that's having a meeting with the other side, whatever it is, this can be a difficult process, especially if you're not tracking the important dates in a contract, because what that ends up doing is you might miss a renewal date, you might miss a cancellation date, and end up in a situation where you have an auto renew. And if you were actually planning on canceling that service, well, you run into a situation where you have the service for a whole nother year, whole other 6 months, whatever the terms of the renewal contract is, And well, you're wasting money on something you're not using or particularly wanting to use, if that makes sense. So moving on from that, kind of now that we have a set of operational definitions for what contract management looks like, we're all on the same page. Let's talk about some tools in Microsoft Teams that can help with contract management. So there's 5 in particular that kind of stand out for helping out, and that is file sharing, the meeting scheduler, search bar, the different integrations that it has to offer, and then the variety of communication channels available to you. So starting with file sharing, Teams allows users to upload and share documents from the computers with others in their organization. This can make collaboration on contracts a lot easier. Instead of having to do everything over email, you can share documents internally and send notifications out to people. You can use Word's inline, basically redlining and versioning capabilities. So as opposed to sending emails back and forth and saying, okay, well, I want to do this, I want to do that. I want to have all of these things here, and documentation like that can get lost in email. Instead, people can leave comments on a Word document, say, okay, well, no, we want this here, we want this here, we like this here, and you can approve those, and you can track all of that versioning. So instead of having 6 or 7 versions of the document floating around, you only have like 5 or 6, and well, not even 5 or 6, you only have the one, and you can see any changes that have been made to the document, who made them, when they made them, and what they did to them, and like what they were. So that can streamline a lot of the process and make things faster. The next one is the meeting scheduler. So Teams has a built-in integration with Microsoft Exchange. This makes it easy to schedule meetings with other people. So if you schedule a meeting in Teams, it'll show up in Outlook. And if you schedule a meeting in Outlook, it'll show up in Teams. Basically, this makes it a lot easier to organize meetings, to discuss terms with people both in and outside your organization. So you can invite them in instead of having to jump to Outlook to make those changes and everything. You can invite them through here. You can set up impromptu video calls. That way you... or you can just basically IM people, but we'll kind of talk about that in a bit. But basically that can really help you get a handle on things and discuss terms and negotiate without having to do everything over email and risk that getting lost. Next up is the search bar. Basically just Teams search functionality in general. It makes it super easy to find documents in Teams. So not only can it find messages, but it can also find apps and tabs that you're using. So this way you can save time digging through different document folders and message strings to find exactly what you're looking for. So for instance, you're finding a specific contract, you're finding a specific conversation you had with someone over a contract, you can just search for that in here, and instead of having to sift through everything, you can sift through a curated list of things that are basically related to that to eventually find what you're looking for. And if you are pretty accurate in your search, you'll be able to find it pretty much immediately, as opposed to having to dig and dig and dig. Moving on from that, but also integrations. So Microsoft Teams has integrations with pretty much every aspect of Microsoft 365. So this allows you to connect to SharePoint, Yammer, Planner, Word, Power BI, and more. Basically, you can use all of your Office 365 investment from one central location, so that way you're not having to jump around. Because I know one of the biggest enemies of Office 365 adoption is essentially, people not wanting to use everything, people not wanting to jump around, people only wanting to use one platform. Well, with Teams, if you can set up the integrations properly, get them in there, the people only have to use Teams. So they don't feel like they have to do anything else. They don't feel like they have an app overload, and they can instead just get going doing what they're doing. And then finally, communication channels. I mean, this is probably should have been the first one, but siesta la vie. Basically, one of the central strengths of Teams is how you communicate with it. Instead of using email for everything, you can use Teams to collaborate with others faster and more efficiently. So you can break up conversations and topics into different threads to segment them to make them easy to reference them for later. So this is great for organizing information. So instead of having everything in just one big blob, you can segment all of that out for organization so that people can jump in, find what they're looking for without having to sift through everything. Because again, it comes back to that. That the number of hours that people waste in a year just finding information is absurd. So you have to imagine, if you can eliminate a lot of that, how much more productive will they be able to be? How much more work will they be able to get done in the time that they have to do work? It's patently absurd, and that's why Teams is one of the best tools, not just for contract management, but just in general. But moving on from that, now that we've kind of talked about and laid the groundwork for a lot of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys just some of the different basically, so what I've done is, let me pull up Teams real quick. So what I've done is I've kind of built out a small team inside my own personal Microsoft Teams. Let me make sure that this is sharing properly. Yes. So basically what this does is it essentially, like as you can see right here, it's a contract management team. So what I've done is kind of built out the whole contract management process, minus reporting, because that's a lot, into the actual Teams tab. So I'll kind of walk you through the process. So essentially, say someone has a contract request that they want to do. Well, what they would do is they would come up here to the contract request form and fill that out. What I've done is I've built out a rudimentary form and then embedded it in Microsoft Teams. So basically people would come here and say who requested it, what department it's for, what's the contract name, the name of the other party, is it a vendor or customer contract, what's the amount, and when would it be effective. They would add that, and then I would be able to see any of the responses here. So for instance, we'll just go through and say, I am customizing it. One second, let me just, preview. Okay, so we'll enter my name. So this wouldn't show up as this for anyone else. It's only showing up for me because I made it here. This is for HR, Wayland Utani, SOW, name of party. They are a vendor, $50,000, effective the 17th. So submit that. Oop, I do not have permission to access this, but it's fine. And basically it would submit the form and you would be able to see the responses here. And then whoever in your system is responsible for actually overviewing contract requests would then be able to come in here and to this tab, which I've embedded in here, and they'd be able to see, hey, this is well, who did it? When did they do it? And then, hey, what is the name of the party, customer, vendor? And they can take this information and use it to come into here to contract templates and apply that information to any one of the contract templates that we have in here. Unfortunately, in this process, just for this, with this rudimentary thing, you would have to take the contract and you would have to basically select it and then say, I would like to copy this. And I'm going to move it into, nope. So we go to contract management, general, nope. Okay, what we would do is we would copy this over. Realistically, yeah, this is, like I said, this is super rudimentary. So what you would do is you would edit in Teams, or you would download it. Basically, there's a couple ways you could do it. Like I said, super rudimentary. Basically, you would just want to use, so what you would do is you would, I know this isn't an SOW, but you would essentially download this. So you've downloaded it to your computer, and then what you would do is you'd go into contracts and you would find, you would basically set up a folder in here. So we have Wayland Utani Core, and we would upload this in here. So all of these are actually just SharePoint, basically. So this is just a form I've embedded. This is the actual Excel spreadsheet that's been embedded in here with contract requests. And then the actual contracts are essentially just the contracts and the contract templates are just various SharePoint libraries. And then what we would do, but basically what we would do is we would rename this to Wayland Utani SOW. I know it's not an SOW, but basically we would do that. come in here, edit the information here in Teams. So basically you'd fill out all this information, set up these different forms. And then what you would do is you would go then share it with someone else in your organization. So whoever is responsible for the next stage of the approval process, you would just say, I would like to, well, we go in here actually, and we would share this information. So let's come up here. Like I said, very rudimentary. Like we're not trying to do anything fancy and automated here. This is just making sure that you can, this is very much for smaller organizations who are just getting started and are looking for a more formalized process. But basically you would then click share it, and you would share it with the people in your organization who you'd want to share it with. As you can see, this loads up right here. Basically, you would then copy that link, and then you would go into one of the actual, like you would create a channel tab or come into here, tag someone and start a new conversation, set it up and be like, hey, can you request this, tag them, and then say a date that you'd want to do that for. So at whatever, we type that, and then basically you would tag the person. They would be able to reply within there as a whole thread chain, as opposed to just typing out in here, seeing all this information. So then once you had the right contract, you would then go to parties and you would update them. So in this case, we already have Skynet set up. I don't know if it would load. So what we do is we do a new item. We would say Wayland Utani. I'm the contract manager. So we'll add that in a second. Party type, vendor, save that information. So we'll go back into contracts. So we would share this, get link, copy that, parties. Edit this information right here. Set that up, and we're good to go. So now that we kind of have that set up, we would be able to jump over to them and we would be able to see that information. Unfortunately, clicking to there would open that up in the browser, but basically you're linking everything together. So that way people on the back end or people who are using SharePoint can jump in and see that, because realistically, that's all it is. So this is, so real quick before I show you that, but then what you would do is you would just go into here under contract management, and then you would, this right here is a planner integration. So what you would do is you would add a task and you would say get sign approve contract, assign it to someone in the organization, set a due date for the 10th, add the task, and it would be there. And then what would happen is the person here would be able to say, okay, well, have I completed it? Have I not? I have in fact signed off on this. It's good to go. And then it's pulled from there. You can also show completed. And you would basically just have different buckets for different, for the different organizations you're working with or different contracts that you're working with. But essentially, once you've also done that, you can also pull out obligations. In this case, we're just tracking this in an Excel spreadsheet. So essentially, hey, there's a payment. In this case, we have it separated by, okay, so this is separated. The tabs down here are the companies that they're separated by. So in this case, you'd have Skynet, Wayland Utani, Tyrell, and you would just use the same setup right there to track that information. And the thing is that all of this is basically just set up within a SharePoint site, because basically when you create a team, it builds itself a SharePoint site that you can use. And so a lot of the formatting here was done by setting up different document libraries within a SharePoint site and then embedding them into a team site. So essentially so I came in here, built out this document library, and then I came into Teams and I said, okay, I would like to click embed up here. I want to embed this Excel spreadsheet. I want to embed this document library. I want to embed this form. And all of those can be done. You can also set that up like a group calendar so people can know when they've scheduled demos, when they've scheduled meetings with other people. And really, you can kind of customize it from there. But the thing is that kind of building it out and setting it up like this is really only good if you're getting started. Once you hit the kind of point where you're managing 100+ contracts a year, you might want to consider switching up to something better. And like I said, this is really just a basic version of how you can do this in Teams. Now, if I pull up the actual, so let me pull up a different kind of more advanced version. So this is what we offer commercially as part of our contract management system. So what we do is we would build this out for you guys, and then for whatever company needed it, and we would then help them by embedding it in Microsoft Teams. So as you can see right here, you have access to a full dashboard that shows you important information. So basically like your upcoming tasks, so you can see what you need to be doing, expiring contracts by a breakdown of 30 to 60 to 90 days, contracts by status, so you can see what's in draft, what's in review. You get a more top-down overview than what I was offering in this kind of rinky-dink little setup right here. But if we go back into here, like with the contract request process, instead of having a situation where you're doing it in a Microsoft form, you're having to track that information. Instead, the request comes in here. You can build out, instead of having just one request for everything, you can build out different request templates. So essentially for instance, let's go back in here, set this up. We'll go through an SOW, fill this out right here. We'll go doc SOW, selecting the department, party type, party name, type, it's a product and service, and it's required by the 17th. It saves that information. And then from there, the person in your organization responsible for that would get a notification to come in here. They would see all of the requests right here. They would be able to see their status, who requested it, what the department is, all of that important information. They would then be able to jump into here, click this, and then basically either close it out, reject it, or create a contract. And then from there, they would be able to choose from different contract templates that, and which you can have an unlimited number of and that match your desire. So instead of pulling from a contract, copying it, pasting it over, or making the relevant changes, you can instead just, choose one of these templates, set it up, and then say, okay, location, filling out the different fields, and give it a second, set up that important information. And then instead of having to type everything out, set it up yourself, you would have these pre-built contract templates that these fields would then auto-populate into. So as you can see, the full contract is just generated right here. Instead of having to do that formatting every time, you instead just have it here, which is fantastic for organizations that are trying to move quickly and that are managing a large amount of contracts. So we'll go back to the contract itself, and here you can see the important information. So you can see important dates if you filled that out, associated information right here, which is again custom depending on what you're trying to do. The contract is actually deposited right here. So instead of having to do a whole process, move everything around, upload everything manually, it instead just deposits it right here into the contract folder. Not only that, if you check out the workflows, instead of having to sign off on somebody, get everything set up, and then them having to move each stage of the process manually, you can set up full workflows. So the first stage is manual, but after that, you have a vendor contract approval. As you can see here, this template gets set up and you have the different stages set up, and you can have an unlimited number of these templates with any stages that match how your approval process works for contracts. And it can be for different departments. So if marketing has a different way, sales has a different way, you can all set that up within here. But moving on from that, you can also see the obligations right here. So you can pull out and track obligations and then assign them out to people. So not just doing it in like an Excel spreadsheet and keeping track of it that way, but instead keeping track of it in here, associating it with the contract itself so you don't have to parse out that information. and making it more easily searchable and findable. You can also associate contracts in the system a lot easier. So if there is another contract that you're working with, there is another contract that you're doing things with, you can share that with other people. Now, sharing and versioning works the same because it uses Word's built-in redlining and versioning capabilities. But, you know, there's no need to reinvent the wheel every time because those are exceedingly powerful functionalities. So you can still just share that with people outside your organization, share that with people you're working with documents with, and you're still using those same redlining and versioning capabilities that have carried you to this point. You can also set up custom notifications in here, add notes for anything that doesn't quite fit the bill for any of these tabs. And then you can also track the history of updates to the contract, which you're kind of not able to do if you're building it out yourself. But also taking a look at the different parties, you can see a full breakdown of them, filter them out right here. So instead of having to keep everything in a list and just kind of hope that that works and then, you know, make customizations and edits there, you can instead just have everything here, jump in and see all of their important information. Instead of having to, you know, keep everything, link out to different documents and everything, it's all just right here. You can see important documents that they've sent you. You can see the breakdown of the contacts, so who you need to be interacting with at their organization. You can see all of the associated contracts visually without having to see it as like a list or jump over to a different tab. You can build questionnaires for them, send them out to them so that you can collect information without having to, you know, send a bunch of emails back and forth and, you know, kind of dawdle around. You can also build out scorecards for them and keep them in here as part of the functionality. So building them is easy, and then tracking them is as simple as just coming in here, filling out this information, adding notes, and getting going. And like I said, all of this is customizable. All of this can be changed to match your organization. In fact, as part of deployment, we work with you to set up the different processes, fields, and templates in here so that you're able to hit the ground running, you know, 4 to 6 weeks after deployment. Well, not after deployment, but after the 4 to 6 week deployment process. So yeah, we do also offer a integration with Certify. So we have a partnership with a company called Certify to integrate their e-signature solution. So as you can see right here, it's actually built into the tab itself. So what you would do is you would click right here to Empowered Mutual NDA version 1. You would click, so 1 second, this is an approved document. We'll then go to e-sign and we'll go with Empowered Mutual NDA doc certify at gmail.com. Upload the documents to sign. So then what you'd do is you'd come in here and you'd be able to pre-fill and add different locations for people to sign. So for instance, let's come down here and we'll say we need a full signature from this organization right here. And we'd also want their initial on, say, right here. So you'd be able to format that and also set up the different fields to collect information. So if you need to collect dollar amounts, people's names in here, you'd be able to add that using these different fields. But we'll save that and exit out to the actual system itself, and then we'll go send it for signature. Give it a second. And then we will come back here and we'll go to gmail.com. Because what it does is Certify will then, after we upload the document to Certify using our contract management system, it'll actually, Certify will send the notification to the other party. So in this case, we'll go to doc certify. Ensuring that I got the right one, hopefully. So as you can see, we have a document sent in for signature. So in this case, Empowered Mutual NDA. So we'll open it up right there. And then we'll click this button to go review and complete the document. And this is a fully signed and executed thing. So instead of having to email things back and forth, having to go through the expensive program that is DocuSign, or faxing things back and forth, you can instead just come here, get started, fill out your name, so Russell, and then filling out the initials. So in this case, QR, finish that, submit it electronically. Then we will exit out and come back here and give it about 3 to 4 minutes. Well, not 3 to 4 minutes. Yep, 3 to 4 seconds, actually. And here you can see the other party will actually get a fully signed and executed version of the contract that you sent out to them. And we come back in here, we exit out, we come back in, we go into contract. It'll actually deposit the fully executed document back into your contract management system. So yeah, the other big thing is that you also get access to different dashboards and reporting that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise. So that way you can keep track of what's going on with your contracts so that you can make sure that you are staying compliant. Because that is the one thing with the kind of solution that I built out by hand, is that you would be able to use Power BI to plug everything into Excel documents and everything, but there's a kind of lack of interconnectivity that you don't get when you're kind of building it yourself, especially if you don't have the extensive SharePoint knowledge, the extensive Microsoft and Office 365 and Teams kind of know how to build a lot of this out. And that kind of is what it comes down to. When it comes to building out something as complex as a contract management system, building out the contract management process, as you grow bigger, you're better, if you still want to do it in Office 365 so that you're getting your most out of that investment, sure, it works to build it out yourself when you're only working with 20 to 50 to maybe even 60 contracts a year. But once you get beyond that, once you start working with more and more people, as that gets more complex and more people get involved in the process, it's better to outsource. It's better to go to a company that's going to build it in your system so that the data is yours, so that you're not having to hope that they're going to give it back to you at the end of a contract term if you ever decide to move away from them. But they're going to offer unlimited support. They're going to offer unlimited training, and they're going to make sure that it's customized and fitted for you, as opposed to you having to customize and fit your processes for them. So if you are interested in doing a demo of this so I will say we only did a brief dive, nothing major, nothing massive. There's definitely a lot more to the system than that, and I'd love to talk to anyone about that. So if you'd like to see more about that, explore how our contract management system could help your company, I'd love to set up a demo with you. So feel free to either reach out to me at qrussell@mydoc365.com. Or if you'd like to sign up for a demo, you can go to our website at mydoc365.com / any one of our systems, really. Not that actual / but if you go to our products, you'll actually be able to find our contract management system. You can sign up for a free demo there. It's 30 to 45 minutes. We kind of explore, do a deep dive, see how our system can help your company, and go over ways that we can really help you reshape your contract management so it's less of a headache than it can be. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them out in the chat. In the meantime, I'd like to talk about some of our upcoming webinars. So next week on May 11th, we'll be doing the next part of our SharePoint Basics series. This time it's on external sharing. So how to manage that and keep your information safe. So how to interact with people outside your organization without having to let them in and kind of give them an opportunity to break things. After that, on May 18th, we'll be doing a webinar on how to simplify record management in SharePoint Online. So how to be more efficient and effective with that. After that, on May 25th, we'll be doing how Office 365 can solve common contract management problems. It's not the same as the webinar we did today, but basically how we can kind of overcome shortfalls and gaps that generally tend to appear in that process. And on June 1st, we'll be taking a look at how Office 365 adoption challenges, just different adoption challenges, and how companies can overcome them to help get the most out of their investment. With that said, I don't see any questions. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions at night, or if you want to schedule a free demo, you can call us at 904-309-9970. Or you can reach me or us, the company, at info@mydoc365.com or qrussell@mydoc365.com. And if you enjoy our content, you want to see more, you enjoy what we do as a company, you feel free to follow us on LinkedIn at Doc365. This has been Quentin Russell with Doc365, talking about how you can use Teams to improve your contract management process. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Bye.